Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Welcome everyone, this is Mary Scott. We have a very special guest today in our podcast, the richness of our lives. It's a beautiful topic today. It's a very deep, heartfelt topic. And I want to introduce you to the awesome Jacqui Winspear. Hello, Jacqui.
Hi, Mary. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
I'm going to preface this a little bit to say that I've known Jacqui for several years, and I have been deeply touched and inspired by this story. So I'm really wanting you guys to be inspired as well. Now, Jacqui has had a very audacious, bold, brazen goal for some time, and I'm not going to take it away from her except to say that along the way, and since she was a little girl, she's been breaking down barriers and all sorts of things with horses, just her life and what she's chosen, her family, where she's living, all of that, she's quite prepared to take on because she is in pursuit of an amazing and wonderful goal, and we're all going to help her here. So let's come back to you, Jacqui. Tell me about a little girl growing up in New Zealand, and what was your deepest passion?
Well, Mary, right from the time we moved from the UK to New Zealand, I was just about 7 years old. My mother was very much into horses, and she took a horse with her from the UK to New Zealand. And I was just absolutely horse mad, and got a pony at some stage, and throughout my life I've continually been riding on and off, more on than off. And my sister also, she learnt to ride, but she gave up at quite an early age. But I've always been very fiercely competitive, and had these dreams of going to the Olympics and World Games and things like that. I used to do eventing riding, which is the dressage, jumping, cross-country and show jumping, but unfortunately had detached retinas when I was 18, and the doctors said to me, sorry, no more riding. If you fall off and hit your head, you could go blind.
Wow, wow.
But I couldn't give up horses, so I gave up jumping and turned to straight dressage. So for the last 30-something years, I've done just pure dressage.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, I was just thinking about it because you're older than 25, let's face it. When your family came out from the UK, your mother actually brought a horse with her. That would have been no mean feat back then. You know, that would have been a major exercise.
No, they came on a ship. They didn't fly them back then. And my mother was into Appaloosa bred horses, and this mare was an Appaloosa, and it was actually the first ever Appaloosa into New Zealand.
Wow. So you've got some of her genes. She was doing groundbreaking things back then, and here you are doing some groundbreaking things. Tell us a bit more about that connection with the Appaloosa. There's a bit of a story there. I'd love you to tell us that story about you and an Appaloosa.
Yes, well, it's a really interesting story. My mother was breeding Appaloosas once there were some stallions in the country, and she bred this beautiful little filly that she advertised for sale, and a lovely lady from Switzerland came to our property and fell in love with this little filly, and she purchased it. And originally she was going to take it back to Switzerland, but she left it in New Zealand for me to ride, and she bought a second one that she took to Switzerland for herself. And I rode this beautiful little mare right up to the Grand Prix level, brought her over here to Australia and qualified for the Pacific League World Cup final, and of which I placed 8th down there in Melbourne and Werribee. And she was the first ever Appaloosa to compete Grand Prix at a CDI international dressage level in the world. So
Woo-hoo.
I did really good groundbreaking things there, and there were lots of people that, although I didn't get the top marks, they appreciated the fact that I'd taken an ordinary horse, not a really fancy, well-bred, very expensive horse, and I'd taken it up to that level, and it just proved that you don't need the flashiest, most quality horse, but you need the best training.
That's fabulous. You know, I'm thinking about all your other talents. You're a teacher, I understand.
Yes.
Are you also an accountant?
Yes, I am that too.
See, we're just adding these things. A teacher, an accountant. So why horses? You could have done anything your heart desires. What on earth are you doing working with horses?
I don't know, Mary. You just get bitten by the bug and you just can't let go. I mean, I'm already missing my beautiful horse who's went on a truck this morning down to Melbourne for his flight to Germany. And I'm already missing him, and he's only been gone like 4 hours, and I wouldn't have been seeing him during the day anyhow. But already thinking of him and other people looking after him for the next week.
That's pretty cool. Is that Mr. Zippo behind you there? Is that
No,
you?
no, it's not.
Oh,
that
who's
horse
that?
there is J.W. Darjeeling. As a 4-year-old, that was the mare that I originally brought over here with the aim of the Rio Olympics, but unfortunately she had soundness issues, so we never quite made it to that level. But she's now in foal and due to drop a nice little bundle of a baby for me next October.
That's awesome. Well, what a beautiful horse. As I look closer, because I've seen Mr. Zippo a few times, I realise that's not him, but my goodness, look how shiny that horse is and just divine. Well, thank you. You know, like I said, you could choose anything. And the longer I know you, the more passionately you become. And I said this to you the other day, and you said, well, I think it's getting closer, but you know, you do seem to have deepened your passion and your commitment. And also the other thing that stands out for me, you seem to be taking quite a lead here in Australia for other people that may have thought up or conjured this idea up of going to Germany to conquer the European market, the UK market, if you like, in dressage. But the other strings you have to your bow is that you are a well-respected judge here in Australia. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. I'm an A-level judge.
And is that the top level, just for people that don't know?
Yes, and yes, until you become an FEI judge, which may or may not be possible for me to do.
Oh, I don't know, Jacqui. You seem to be one of those people that crack on when you see impossible, you make it possible. Now, that's just my little add-on, by the way. The other thing is that you also train people in dressage. What sort of results have you had from some of your students? What would they say about Jacqui Winspear today if I was to talk to them?
Well, I have taught from beginners right up to the highest level. And I would say that my students really like the way that I don't just look at the lessons as a dollar signs in my eyes. They can phone me up, they can ask a question, and I'll always be there to answer it. I'll help them prepare at a competition and warm their horse up at no extra charge if they're regular students of mine. And they would just say that I'm really committed to them improving and becoming the best that they can be.
That's really cool. And some of the things that you and I have talked about, I've been privileged to learn. And by the way, everyone, Jacqui has taught me so much about dressage. She taught me so much about horses. But you have a particular style. Is that just in training people, I mean, is that just unique to you? You kind of have this special connection with you and your horse that is, and this is a lay person speaking, that is driven by kindness and allowing the horse to come into its own rather than strength and power over the horse. You've got a particular way of dealing with the horses. Is that unique to you?
I'm not sure that it's unique to me, but certainly my coach over here, Jonathan Angeli, he has really instilled into me that the horse can always do everything. It's the rider that messes the horse up. So we spend most of our time making sure that the rider understands the aids and is consistent with the aids to get the horse to do whatever it is you're asking of it. And therefore, every time you give one particular movement with your leg or hand, the horse must respond in a certain way, and that your position is correct all the time. So I work more on the rider rather than the horse. The horse becomes good because the rider is good, not the other way around.
So you're not disciplining the horse, are you? I love what you said. Jonathan says the horse already knows what to do. And as the rider, you're the one catching up, not the horse.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny, isn't it? I think that's lovely. And what do you know about horses? Are they smart? Tell us what you think of horses.
Horses are very smart, but they do like consistency. So just for an example, if you want to turn left, you squeeze your left hand, and when the horse feels the rein and the bit touch its lips, it should turn. If it doesn't, there's no point in getting stronger with the rein, because then it will hurt the horse's mouth and the horse will open its mouth, which is not what we're looking for. We have to just go back and start again and ask again until we get what we want. Then we praise the horse for doing it. And then it gets easier and easier and easier every time. When the horse feels the bit touch its lips to the left, it will turn left. And then you turn your body to the left. However much you turn your body, the horse will turn that much. So that's how you make a circle from a large circle to a small circle, is literally just by turning at the waist and turning your body more.
Oh, that's so simple, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And yet it takes a while to get, by the sound of it. Not everyone gets that straight off.
It does. It's the only thing that the horse ever really needs to know is how to go, how to stop, how to turn left and turn right. And then it's how you put your body that makes the horse dance and move underneath you, with a bend in his body or straight body or quarters in or shoulders in, anything like that, or doing a sideways, half passes. It all comes from the rider's aids in the rider's body. So long as when you put your legs on, the horse goes forward. When you squeeze your hands, the horse slows down or stops. If you squeeze one hand and not the other, it turns whichever way you're asking it to turn. That's all the horse really has to know.
That's very cool. That's lovely. And a couple of days ago, you sent me a video. I just was reminded of it then when you said about dancing, and a beautiful synergistic display of you with your horse. And clearly there's some affection there, and you seem to understand each other very well. In fact, sometimes when I'm speaking to you, when you're referring to Mr. Zippo, I get the feeling that you're talking about another person, not a horse.
Well,
do you feel yourself doing that sometimes?
Absolutely. Dressage is a partnership between you and the horse. It's like ballroom dancing. You have to know everything about your horse and your partner. He has to sense what you're asking him to do, and you have to sense what he's thinking, to get that partnership to really dance. It's not a series of mechanical moves. It's a feeling. You have to feel each other. And so you can't get somebody else to train your horse and then just get on it and ride it. It won't work because, yes, you'll be able to ride it, but it won't work to get that absolute pure dancing that you want, because you have to know each other inside out, back to front.
Yeah, that's great. So let's get to the reason that I've invited you here today. You're taking on a huge goal. You're going to go to Germany. And tell us all about that. Why are you going to Germany? You could stay here in Australia and compete with dressage, do your judging, do your training, but why do you want to go to Germany? Tell us about that.
Well, I've had this goal for many, many years that I've wanted to represent my country at the Olympics or the World Equestrian Games. And let's face it, I'm nearly getting up there in age. And if I don't try now, I'm going to always regret that I haven't done it, that I didn't try. So I'd been following a gentleman on the Clip My Horse TV Academy, Christoph Hess, and I loved the way he trained the horses. Everything is quiet, everything is soft, in the same way as my coach here, Jonathan Angeli. And I just loved the whole way he was doing everything. And I was trying all the exercises that he was explaining, and I had a couple of questions. So I researched and found an email address for him, and I sent him an email to ask these questions. And surprisingly, and it was very surprisingly, within 24 hours, he responded and said, answered the questions and said, I'd really like to see you and your horse. And so we set up an online lesson through my Pivo, and he watched me ride, and he asked me what my goals were, what I would like to do with the horse. And I told him, and his first thing was that I like the way you sit, and I really like your horse. And I thought I was quite proud of that, because we're over the other side of the world here to where the main dressage world is, and lots of people travel over and do some training in Germany, but very few actually take their horse with them. They'll go over and do some training and then come back and try and put that training into action in Australia or New Zealand. But he said to me, I'd like us to talk again. And we did a few days later, and he came back with me and he said, I'd really like to help you achieve your goal. And I don't have a farm anymore because, I'm past the age of running a farm. But my son has a farm, and he's willing for you to come over to Germany and stay there, and he will train you and I will train you when I'm down on his farm. And I'll also immerse you fully in dressage and take you around to all the clinics that I run. He trains coaches and he trains the FEI judges over in Germany. And he's also training several teams for the eventing discipline of dressage, including an Australian, Andrew Hoy. And so the offer was just too good to refuse. It was like my head spun around and thought, well, how am I going to do this? But I'm not saying no. There's no way I'm saying no to that offer. Christoph Hess is probably one of the top German dressage trainers of all time. He's been an Olympic judge. He's now retired from judging, but actually does the coaching now of the judges and coaches. So he's just an amazing man, and I just love the way he trains. And a super sensitive horse like Zippo will they just suit each other really well, because sometimes some trainers don't suit a particular horse because of the nature of the horse. But a really sensitive horse like Zippo needs someone who's very quiet, very user-friendly, shall we say?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you end up becoming at loggerheads with each other rather than learning to become that partnership.
That's right, which is what we were addressing before. I have to say, when you started talking about talking to him, I was getting goosebumps. Can you explain for the people listening what a pivo is? How does that work? How does someone in Germany train you early morning here in Australia?
It's a pivo is a tiny little module that goes onto a tripod, and it's Bluetooth to your phone. And there's a pivo meet mode, and you click on the meet mode and invite the guest to watch, and they watch you live while you're riding, and the pivo follows you around the arena. It just senses where the horse is and follows around so that the person watching on the other side of the world can train.
Have you got earpieces in?
Yes,
Can
you
he
have
talk to you?
earpieces, so I can hear him and he can hear me. And I have students here in Australia that I train online via the pivo, and basically online training started much when COVID started.
Oh,
Because
how
otherwise
cool.
people lost their livelihood.
That's right. So is your plan to train some of your students while you're in Germany, back here in Australia, or anywhere? That means you can
Yes,
train anywhere in the world.
I
Is that
can.
correct?
I have a student in the United States, and yes, I do some of my students that sometimes come to me, or sometimes I do online. And yes, we're going to continue while I'm over in Germany.
Wow, that's so inspiring. It's beautiful, isn't it? You know, when you think about COVID and how drastic that was and how it impacted different people's lives, this is a real plus. It's opened up, I imagine, the entire global market for someone like you, where you've dedicated your life to your craft. Because I think it's a craft. I think it's a very specialized craft. Your teaching, your judging, and your dressage, which is going to take you to the worlds. And what year is the World Games, isn't it? What year is that and whereabouts?
2026 in Aachen in August.
And where's Aachen for
Aachen is in
everyone?
Germany, northwest
Oh my
Germany.
gosh, you're going to be right, Johnny, on the
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah, Johnny on the spot in the right place. Aachen is one of the most prestigious showgrounds in the world. Everyone aspires to go to Aachen. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Oh, that's brilliant. So you're on the countdown. How many days till you go, Jacqui?
I go on Monday, so it's Wednesday now. So Monday is what, 5 days away?
Wow. So let me ask you something, because the Richness of Our Lives podcast is about how people create greatness, which is what you're doing through personal development. So reflect, if you would, how do you think your personal development training experiences over, because you've been a personal development student for some time, a diligent student at that, how has that helped you to get yourself organized? Because there's been a lot to do, let alone jumping on a plane. You've already let your horse go. How has that helped your mindset and your preparation for this massive, massive adventure ahead of you?
Well, Mary, it's quite complicated, I think. I started on my personal development journey. Look, it was when COVID started, when there was nothing else to do. I wanted these goals, and I was like, well, how how can I achieve these goals? How can I plan these steps to actually do what I want to do? And I kind of took a few different paths, and I had a horse at the time who was getting close to the Grand Prix level, but I had the feeling that he was never going to be an international quality horse. But I really liked him, and I was competing well with him, and I sold him, which is helping to fund this trip. And Zippo came up purely by accident. Somebody had imported him for their daughter into Australia, and they just couldn't strike up a partnership. They just seemed to be at loggerheads with each other, and Zippo started to misbehave. The young rider became disillusioned with riding him, and I had the opportunity to purchase him, and I just fell crazy in love with him because he is just so sensitive, which is what I like in a horse. I don't like to have to kick hard. And we struck a deal because they actually bought the horse that I sold to help fund this trip, and I purchased Zippo, and it's all worked out well. But with the personal development, it's been helping me to structure myself. I've always wanted the goal, but wanting and wishing and actually taking it into action are two totally different things. And it came about really, I think it was one of your sessions when we did our storyboards for the year.
Oh, yes, yes. Vision boards.
The vision boards, that's the one. And when I actually cut out all those pictures of the things that I wanted and put them on that board, and that board sat behind me for several months, and I kept looking at them and looking at them and looking at them, and gradually made those little changes in direction and thought, how can I do this? How can I do this? And when the opportunity came up with Christoph, that was when it was high speed action, because I couldn't say no. That would just be silly. That was the opportunity for me to do what I really, really wanted to do. I had no idea when I said yes how I was going to do it, but there's always a way around every problem. And something that I don't lack in is tenacity. And I was determined it was going to make it happen. And gradually over time, and with the help of the AGA group that I'm a member of, that are a fantastic cheer squad, we've made it happen. Because horses and dressage and competing can be quite a lonely sport. There's just you and your horse. There's a lot of tall poppy syndrome in quite a lot of people, and they're not always helpful. They don't always want to back somebody else. But when they actually see you out there doing it, they'll back you, but they don't want to help you in advance. If that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense.
So
yes.
you end up feeling quite alone sometimes at competitions. And I would say me especially, a lot of competitors don't feel like they can fraternize with a judge who's going to judge them next week or the week after or whatever. So it makes it that I'm often at a show on my own, which I don't mind, because it just gives me time to spend more time with my horse. And that way I get to know him even better.
That's lovely.
It's not just the riding, it's the handling. You have to know each other.
Yes, exactly. You make a couple of really good points. And the first one is that the how doesn't matter. You just plunged in. This is what you wanted. You got the opportunity. You just went bang. And that's been my experience with goals, that the how takes care of itself. But we just get in our own way, don't we? We try and control the situation. But I love, as someone who's been observing this process quite closely, it's been a really delightful experience for me to see you just go at it and watch things drop into place. And the second thing you mentioned, and I think this is a worthy one, and this is all about personal development, is having some really good boundaries, because you're quite unique. You're a judge and you ride in competition. And you're right, some people wouldn't think it was correct to fraternize with judges, so it does isolate you a little bit. But I think it's quite a good boundary, isn't it? Because it keeps you with yourself, and then there can be no stories about collusion or you helping someone in an event and all that sort of thing. So all kudos to you on those two counts. Tell me this, what's been your biggest learning? You've been going hard at it. I know you've lost how many kilos in preparation for this?
10.
10 kilos. I know you look like a different woman to me. Yeah, you look pretty fit. You look pretty, well, I was going to say rugged, and I mean that kindly. You've got a lovely tan about you. You look alive. It's just fabulous. When you get to Germany, they're going to go, whoa, who's this chick? And have you had to make sacrifices? Is there anything that you didn't expect that challenged you up until this point?
That's quite a difficult question. There's been little challenges all the way along. Certainly thinking about where I was going to live over there, because Bettenrode doesn't have any apartments or anything, and it's out in the country. So I thought about buying a horse truck and living in that like I used to over here when I first moved here. And then thought, okay, then I can transport my horse and I have somewhere to stay. Beautiful, that will work really well. Except when I want to go to the supermarket and buy food, driving a huge horse truck is not the best way to travel around, and they're expensive to run and insure and things like that. So I've ended up purchasing a motorhome, which has towing capacity.
Ooh.
And when I want to go to a horse show, I can hire a horse float, for which Philip Hess has 2 horse floats, which I can hire when I need. And then it makes it much easier for going to the supermarket, because at least a camper van is parkable.
That's right.
And I can go and visit my sister who lives in France and my son who's in London. Sure, I might not take the camper van with me. I might fly or fast train or something. But yes, it's going to be much easier living and driving and cheaper, except that I bought it in the UK, the camper van, which is fantastic because I much prefer the right-hand drive. It's much easier for me, even though I'll be driving on the left, but struggling to get insurance because I'm not a UK resident, even though I'm a UK citizen, because I haven't been resident in the country. It's been a real struggle, and I've got 5 days.
To sort that.
In fact, I've got less than 5 days because there's a weekend in there. So, yes, I do have a quote in which should come through, but I also yesterday Googled a German company that I can get insurance through, which is apparently quite simple to get insurance, and certainly I should be able to get that one if I can't get this one that I'm wanting. And after I've owned the camper van for 6 months, I can then register it in Europe without having any duty, because it's like I'm moving there because I've owned the camper van that long, and then registering it in Europe becomes really simple.
Isn't that interesting? You say apparently, and it's like anything, isn't it? It's apparent that this is possible, but until you actually do it, which right at the beginning you said about goals and ideas, nothing really happens. You don't bring it to fruition unless you put the action in, and you have put
Absolutely
boundless amounts of action towards this goal. I'm hoping that you will be available to maybe do a couple of these Zoom chats and videos so that we can get some updates. I for one, am very excited to know about your adventure. Will that be okay if we call you again?
Absolutely, no problem at all. It's really exciting. I'm sort of getting excited now. It's a bit hard to get excited when I've still got a whole house to pack up before in the next 3-4 days. And I have decided though that I'm getting a moving van to take my stuff to storage. I'm not going to try and do it myself.
Oh no, my goodness. Last question as we come to an end, Jacqui. What would you say to people that have hairy or audacious goals? If you've got one tip that you could share with them?
Never give up.
There you go.
Absolutely.
You've heard it.
Never give up.
Go on.
Yeah, just
And
absolutely
that's true.
never give up, because you'll have hurdles and things will be tough, but there's always a way to problem solve and find a way through. So don't give up.
It's absolutely fantastic. And I, for one, are going to be watching from afar, and I'm very excited for you to have this adventure. Thank you so much for giving up your time. I know time is precious for everyone, but more so for you because you're under the pump, you're on a big timeline. And, congratulations from all of us. I know I speak for a lot of people getting this far, Jacqui. And I've kind of got a bit of an idea where this is going to take you, but I'm excited to watch and learn and also grow from watching you achieve great success. So go get him, girl, and thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Mary, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much. Bye for now.
This week's episode has come to an end. But the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.